Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So taking on a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because we're going to be going over Zuiki's recent announcement of new Sharp X68000 Z emulation devices. They have an X68000 Z Super as well as an XVI or 16 in the pipeline. It looks like they're going to be selling them initially via crowdfunding and then hopefully at retail. Now I'm sure just like the original X68000 Z you see here, it's going to be a Japanese exclusive, but a lot of the issues I've had with this microcomputer emulation device seem to be getting improved or basically fixed in a new version, and that is because as much fun as the X68000Z is, it is so limited only playing the SD cards or one very specific type of floppy disk image that basically none of the Sharp X68000 library online actually exists in. And I've really been hoping that maybe there would be a new version of this that made it a lot easier to deal with and a lot more fun to just sit down and play versus kind of having to poke around and spend more time setting it up than actually enjoying it. And it seems like Zuiki heard the audience, and that is what they're doing, because like I said, this thing is absolutely a ton of fun, but it's not something I recommend to like 99 out of 100 people. You need to learn Human 68K, you need to learn all of the different strange file formats this device wants, and you need to have a wallet willing to pay the luxury cost of getting something like this. When I've done emulation tutorials on the 68000, both on MiSTer FPGA as well as Windows, there's a ton of different ways to play these games, and honestly, as much fun as unboxing and showing this to you was, it really again wasn't something that I would recommend to many people whatsoever unless they were painfully curious about the X68000. But the good thing is there's two new models coming from Zuiki, and they uploaded this video onto their Twitter last week. You're going to see one, it got much bigger and now seems to be about the same size as an actual X68000. There's going to be two models as well, but the size difference really isn't why I'm here, although it would be fun to have a bigger X68000 next to your computer desk hooked up to a monitor. You're going to get a lot more ports around the back. You're going to get some MIDI ports, which is going to be awesome, but the number one port you're going to get is going to be a SCSI port. Now, not many people are going to have SCSI hard drives, but you do have stuff like Blue SCSI and SCSI to SD, which basically allow you to use SD cards. And getting a library of games into the Sharp X68000, having virtual hard drives or SCSI drives is going to make it insanely easier to actually deal with getting a game collection playable, and that I think is going to be one of the best improvements of this new X68000 line, the Super and the 16. Now, interestingly enough, they are going to have different specs. We'll go over that in just a bit, but it is going to basically operate on the exact same premise as the original. You are going to have those SD cards which you can boot software off of. You're not going to be losing any ports whatsoever, so if you like buying those boxed SD cards, and I know a decent amount of people do, it's still going to be something you're capable of. But honestly, pretty much anyone who owns an original Sharp X68000, 9 out of 10 times is going to play the games from either an actual SCSI hard drive or something like an SD to SCSI device. It just allows you to easier navigate the system, you get faster loading, and you'll see here on the back you have these little plastic indentations of where stuff like that would have gone back in the day. But now with a full-size 68000 tower, they're actually going to be putting those ports in there, and interestingly enough, they're also going to leave some space for a micro ATX motherboard so you can actually dual boot the thing into Windows 10, which I don't think a lot of people are going to want to do, but it is a fun little pivot, because when I took this thing apart and opened up this door, there was nothing behind it whatsoever, no functionality. So obviously having a bigger case is going to allow them to give you more expandability, which is always a good thing. The more options, especially at this price point, to allow you to do what you want, definitely the better. But let's go over some of the details from time extension. Here you're going to get new photographs of the actual X68000, and again, I think it's going to be a lot of fun that it actually is more of a full-size computer. You're going to see the crowdfunding is going to be on a site, Kibadango, never heard of it before, but I'm sure it's pretty legit over in Japan, because obviously Zuiki has a track record of shipping all the stuff that they have made so far. And the two different models are going to have some very interesting differences between the two of them. You're going to have the Z, which is the standard issue that I've shown you on camera before, and the new Super is going to have the exact same specs, but it's going to have all of those additional ports, things like SCSI and the MIDI ports, as well as more USB. So you're going to get the exact same performance out of the Super as you would out of the Z. You're just going to get more ports and a bigger PC, but those ports are going to make the big difference. But interestingly, once this thing goes to crowdfunding, there is going to be the XVI or 16 model, which is going to use a completely different SoC or system on chip. If we take a look at the specs here, both the Super and the original share that exact same specification, but if you look on the Z side, you have an 8-core Cortex A55 with a more powerful Mali GPU, but again, the ports are really going to be where the difference is. And I'm not sure what that extra speed on that SoC is going to go for, because every single game I've thrown at the X68000Z has ran totally fine. I haven't had any issues whatsoever, so maybe it's going to be for some sort of expansion capabilities, maybe it's going to be for game mods. I really don't know, they haven't specified that yet. But again, having the SCSI port on the back is going to open this thing up to actually being an enjoyable experience. Now, I'm not knocking the X68000Z, but I hate having to use Python scripts to rework different floppy drive images to the one format that the thing actually takes. It is a metric pain in the ass. When I showed you the X68000 emulation tutorial with the 4 different SCSI hard drive images that you load up into the emulator, and then you have the entire library at your fingertips, this is how people want to enjoy stuff. It's the same thing on MiSTer FPGA. People want to stop thinking about the technology underlying how they're playing a game, and they just want to make it easy to sit down and actually play the game. So that SCSI port on the back, so long as it is compatible with the SCSI to SD and the blue SCSI devices, is going to be absolutely awesome. But that is the thing. People are going to have to test them with these adapters first, but if it is just a standard SCSI protocol and port, which I would highly assume it is because SCSI is just SCSI, then they should work totally fine, because on real X68000 hardware, those SCSI converters work perfectly fine, and I use them a lot as well on hard drive and disk images for arcade games that use SCSI, and I've never found a device yet that will not work with them, so I'm assuming these are going to be exactly the same, because it is 100% fun to collect these little plastic cases with the SD cards inside of them, having the different software on them, but they are expensive and they are Japanese only, and when you just want to add a game or collection of games to your X68000, doing it on the Z is going to take you hour upon hour upon hour, having to convert every single disk image over to the proper format, because I have looked for archives online and I cannot find anything that has a bulk of games using the format that the X68000Z does. It really makes me wonder why they chose that format in the first place. It's not one that I would have picked, considering every single X68000 dump online is either an HDF or hard drive file, or it's going to be something that's in a different format for the disk image. So it's like they actually made this thing about as hard to deal with as humanly possible on that file front. So again, making it easier I think is going to expand the audience, because these things are fun, but honestly they feel like a very burdensome curiosity at this point in time. And it's not like I don't love the thing, it is a ton of fun to play around with, but it just makes you work for your fun. And if that's why you want an X68000, if you want to work for your fun based upon the price of these things, get yourself an actual X68000 that needs a recap and a new power supply, and just fix it up and make it work yourself. You're going to put in all of that work if that's what you're there for, but it is going to be a more rewarding experience because you'll have an actual X68000 PC by the time you're done, and that's definitely something you would enjoy. And again, it's still going to be the exact same operating system, so you're going to have to learn how to use Human 68K, both the visual version as well as kind of the MS-DOS version, just to get yourself going. But of course, I'm sure it's going to come with a lot of the different creature comforts that the Z comes with. You'll be able to save and load your save states, and you can just reset the game and exit to the menu. So it does give you the option to kind of make this thing a more modern X68000, but again, with the expansion of all of the different ports, it's just going to be an easier device to actually play around with, and that definitely, in my opinion, is what it needed for sure. And Zuiki even uploaded a long live stream to YouTube. I will leave a link in the description below, going over some of the different details and ports on the back and how this thing is going to function. I love the Zuiki team. They just seem so animated and excited about what they're actually bringing to market. That is because obviously they really do seem to be X68000 enthusiasts. Now, if you do want to pick one of these up, you want to pick an X68000Z up, be aware a lot of the updates are behind a password, and you have to use a serial number card that comes in your X68000 box. So maybe not the type of thing that I would buy used. If somebody's already registered it, you can end up in a situation where updating it is very difficult. But as they go around the overall dimensions of the case here and showing you everything on the back, those MIDI pass-throughs, ins and outs, as well as that SCSI port and even the Nano ITX slot are really going to be where this thing shines. It's going to give you more functionality for the price. And of course, once you actually try to get this thing to the US, it's definitely going to cost more, but that is the thing. If you want an X68000, they are not cheap, and again, trying to collect original games for this thing is absolutely a fortune. I only have a few in my collection, and they're on the cheaper side. If you wanted to buy every single top 10 game on something like the X68000, you're probably going to be spending in excess of $10,000 to get titles that look like this. But on the X68000 Z or the new consoles, you're going to be able to enjoy these X68000 original games without having to go over to Yahoo Auctions Japan or any of the other Japanese vendors that you can find online, because trust me, trying to find these games in North America is basically an impossibility, especially some of the deeper cuts here like Dracula Hakushaku or the Man Called Dracula. But it is always fun to play around with the original media, but for 99 out of 100 people, something like the X68000 Z Super or 16 is really going to be the de facto way you want to play it until the MiSTer FPGA core is done, and I would probably say the same about MiSTer. But it's fun that Zuiki's continuing along the X68000 Z line. A lot of you guys asked for more information on this and more gameplay. I'll probably get to that in the future. But leave me a comment down below and tell me, what do you want me to see played on something like the X68000 Z, so I know. But definitely pay attention to the updates. They're probably going to be coming more in March and April, and I'll definitely do another video when that happens. When we're done, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.